Speaking to you from beautiful Philadelphia. I'm going to read an email to you that I got today. Hi, do you have some advice how to draw a lot? I mean, really a lot, for hours or a whole day long. I love to draw and I won't give up, but I have problems with staying focused more than 30 minutes, even if I draw every single day. Do you have any idea how to set my time for drawing a lot? And what's also important, drawing atmosphere. I'm going to describe to you a scenario. Let's say that you have an individual who can't stay focused for more than 20 minutes at a time, but is creative-minded, is good at drawing, likes to draw, likes to become artistic and get into the creative zone. The ideal would be the ultimate prolific artist, where you can basically work on your art all day long, and you could devote an entire life to it. But between these two extremes, the difference is focus, the ability to stay focused for a long period of time. First of all, I'm going to introduce to you the idea that the mind follows the body. Now, recent studies show that if you physically smile, you're more likely to feel happy, and that if there are two types of poses. There are expansive poses and there are closed-in poses, and people who are scrunched over or closed in usually feel more depressed, and people who are expansive and opened up to the world, the postures themselves help promote more energy, more passion for life, and ability to work. These studies are part of studies that have to do with robotics. Because they're working on robotics, they're realizing that humans, when you design a robotic mind, you can't just design it on its own. It has to be created in the physical body that it's going to operate in, and they're realizing that the construction of the robot's body really dictates the way its mind is going to work, and that animals and humans are the same way. That in a way we think with our bodies. When we pretend to smile, this triggers certain mechanisms in the brain that makes the brain operate in different ways that can lead to releasing more chemicals that can lead overall to more happiness. I have read this and do understand these things, but I don't have the facts down. But the general idea I want to convey, and I invite you to go and look into these things on your own. The general idea is that the brain follows the body. Not in all ways, but you can use this as a tool to become more focused and motivated. Okay, when I was a kid, I started to go running, and what I would do is I had a piece of paper on my wall, and I'd go running, I think, 5 days a week, and I started out not running very far. I'd run to the park and run back, and I estimated, I think it was like a quarter mile, but I did do that every one of those 5 days, and I kept track of it. I kept track of how much I ran and each day, and I wrote it down somewhere I could see it. The important part about this activity is that I set up a system where I started small, but I kept track, and over time I gradually increased how far I ran. So the goal was nothing more than to stay with that distance and gradually increase it. Idea number 3, you have someone who really wants to be strong, has the character, the willingness, the drive to be strong, but the fact is they haven't gotten strong yet. So there's no point in them trying to lift 400 pounds because they haven't built up that ability yet. But if they start out lifting 15 pounds every day for half a year, and then not thinking they can jump to 300 pounds, but then increase that to 20 pounds that they continually lift every day for half a year, keeping track of it, writing down every day, even if that amount does not change. It is essential that it becomes part of your enthusiasm to see the amount and the day. Each time that amount is achieved and the day, writing that down. That is such a huge part of getting a handle on motivation and focus. So because exercise is a physical activity, we don't go to exercise the same way we would go to art. We're not worried about whether we're inspired or not. We're not worried about whether we have ideas or project ideas or something to work on, or it's a purely physical activity. But realize the advantage to that. Realize how much more that makes that unsusceptible to being distracted, to having enthusiasm lost for a project, and all those other things that can happen. On the other hand, now, working artistically, any form of art is very much like mysticism, is very much like meditation and any of those kind of pursuits, with the exception that art does have a physical side to it. It does have where you are actually physically doing something. You're typing, you're tearing up paper, you're building something, you're drawing. So think about it. So many people can achieve becoming obsessed marathon runners. How now, if they can become prolific at doing those things, why can't an artist become prolific at writing or drawing? First of all, here's what you do. Kind of the same way an athlete would sort of like do a run of lifting weights to find out where they're at, to find out how much they can lift, and go ahead and keep a record of that, and then that record will be used to build on and slowly build up. Do a similar thing. Have a session of drawing or writing and try it, really do whatever is comfortable, what you think is going to be easy. If you think 10 minutes is going to be easy, make 10 minutes how much you write or draw each day. And the thing is you want to go ahead. I use Google Calendar to keep track of my time, and I've kept track of my time for years. And the name of the game is, first, it's purely a physical exercise. I'm writing or drawing just to get my hours in. And that way I can let the brain follow the body. And as I start the activity of doing the artwork, the brain will follow. The ideas will start happening. The brain will say, hey, we're working on this creative stuff. How about this idea? Or you're, during a different part of your day, you have an idea that you realize that you can use that evening when you're working on your artwork. And the idea, people feel like they create art out of inspiration, which is, I think, how a lot of us start to identify with being artists. But I think in the long run, it starts to be the other way around, that inspiration comes to those of us who are willing to put in the effort, that through continually devoting ourselves to this ritual. Think of it as a ritual. When you think of it as a ritual, then it's something that can sometimes be very methodical and sometimes even mindless. If you're working on a mosaic, you're not concept drawing, you're not trying to come up with that brand new original idea. You're basically just doing something almost mechanical of putting these objects together. And when you practice art as a ritual, what that means is that you're doing it on a purely physical level because you know that the brain will follow the body. If you go through this ritual of making your art, as an example, if you want to draw a lot, say for 10 minutes you're going to draw buildings, or you can start off with something where you're not so much creatively challenged. It can be something where you're not going to have to worry if you're going to be able to come up with the ideas you need to fulfill that project. It could be something where you'll know how to do it and what to do, and you just need to actually do it. You need to go ahead and go through the motions of getting it done. And when you think of it as a ritual, it is something that you do methodically, and it helps if you do it almost every day of the week. And it does not help to try to be an obsessed artist right from the beginning. Just as the same way it would not help for someone who can only lift 15 pounds to try to lift 300 pounds. The ability to focus and stay focused for long periods of time is exactly like a physical ability. The ability to lift great amounts of weight, or the ability to run many miles, or the ability to play basketball for 4 hours. It's something that almost no one can do without gradually building up the ability to do so. So yes, we are still artists, but we're going to do something that seems very non-creative. We are going to have that paper on the wall or the calendar and mark down, and don't just do it for as long as you can and mark down that amount. Have a set time. Now, when I first started keeping track of my hours, it was when I was working a lot at a regular job, and I said, okay, there's no artwork in my life. This has to change. So, okay, I would paint for half an hour every evening, no matter what. And I did it the same way that I used to go running. I would set the timer and I would paint for half an hour, and when it was done, I usually stopped because I also happened to work that day and I was exhausted. And so, but as I did that, then after a while it was like, okay, I'm going to increase it a little bit, and always increase it a little bit, because that amount that you increase it, you're going to have to continue doing it that amount from then on, day after day. So it isn't like you can paint half an hour one day, 3 hours the next day, and 20 minutes the day after that. You want to gradually build it up. I've actually taken back the time a little bit. There are times where I will work on my artwork for 60 hours a week. And there are long periods of time where I'll average 50 hours a week. And how do I know? Because I keep very accurate track of my time. And why do I do that? Why would an artist need to do that? Because it is a psychological trick. It's a way of helping us gain the ability to get focused, because if we keep track of the hours, then we can watch, we can see how much we're able to do, and then once we do that, we can very gradually build up. When you're at a state of development where you are able to stay focused for half an hour a day doing your drawing, and then you start doing it 40 minutes a day, most likely you're going to start tiring yourself out each time. But if you stick to it and you continually draw for 40 minutes each day and don't change that amount, eventually that 40 minutes is going to be just as easy for you to do as 30 minutes used to be. And that's when you can go ahead and start drawing 50 minutes each day. And continue on. And there is no rush. Absolutely allow yourself to take years building up to the obsessed, prolific level that you want to build yourself up to. We're lucky because if we were normal mystics, we couldn't use the fact that such a huge part of our form of mysticism has to do with physical activity. But the brain follows the body. By doing the ritual of artwork, we can go ahead and set the body doing it. It's a task, the same way as it would be to rake the lawn or walk from your house to the store. It's something that any of us could decide, okay, we need to get this physical task done and become determined to do it every day. The whole reason I'm interested in art has nothing to do with everything I've described to you in this video. Of course, the reason I like art is for that feeling of inspiration, that feeling of discovery, that feeling of being in the zone. But what I have to say to that is, think of it as like you have two people and both of them turn on the radio occasionally. So you have one person who, let's say on the weekend, turns on the radio for 20 minutes and who knows what's going to get picked up on the radio. Then you have someone who turns on the radio 30 minutes every day consistently for a lifetime. And when you're looking at that page where you keep track of the days and the hours you focus on your artwork, think of it as for a lifetime. This is going to be something, like I've said, I've done this for years, and I can go back and I can look at how many hours I've done each day for years. This is a lifetime deal. What is the likeliness of the person who turns the radio on 30 minutes every day for a lifetime of picking up some amazing broadcast? And that is where doing the physical activity of making art is like leaving yourself open to inspiration. You're like a radio where by doing that as purely as an exercise, as a ritual, as an activity, you are like a radio that opens it up itself, turns itself on for inspiration. Think of your body as part of your brain, that whatever you're doing physically through activity is a way of changing your mind space, changing your mood, changing your perception, changing your insightfulness, changing your ability to make connections and to work with new information and all of that. What you do physically greatly has an effect on all of those states of your mind environment. After you set that very easy, very doable portion of time that you're going to focus on your artwork, when you start out, think of it as an activity, as a ritual made to change your mental environment. One reason this approach is so important is that if you're working on gradually increasing your focus, you need feedback. You need to find a way to know you are doing that. Otherwise, you could be gradually improving, but you have no system that is giving you information telling you so. But if you keep track of your hours in that way, what you do is you set up a system where you get the feedback, you get rewarded, you create this system that tells you when you're improving, when you're getting better increment by increment, and this is a great motivator. When you are given that feedback, it encourages you to continue with the level of focus you have set for yourself. And gradually, and it's sort of like winning something. It's sort of like being awarded something. When you step up that time, it builds self-confidence, it creates motivation, it causes you to be driven by eagerness. When athletes say that they really are only competing with themselves, time and again you'll hear an athlete, talk about how they compare to other athletes, and they'll say, well, I'm only really competing with myself. This is what they're talking about. They're competing with how they were last year. They're competing with how they were half a year ago. And with patience, they are gradually getting better. Now, I've never heard of anyone being told that they have to play a video game. As far as I know, almost all of the time, people want to. They are driven to play video games. It's not a question of motivation. Let's look at the psychology of a video game. One part of video games is that you are beating your last score. The system is set up so that if you make a minor improvement, there's a way that you feel that and know that, and you're given information that makes that real to you. And if you do the same with your art practice, then it's just like a video game. Then you feel the same thrill of reward, and when you look at your time and realize that you're putting a whole 10 extra minutes into good art focus that you weren't a few months ago, it's the same thing as when you're playing a video game and you make it to that level that you haven't made it to for the last month. See, the smart kind of motivation is not about trying to force yourself into do something through sheer willpower. It's understanding the psychology of motivation. That when you're in an environment that makes you motivated, you're given some kind of reward for your effort, and this happens on a subconscious level. This happens. This feels like doing something easily and with little effort, because your brain, your subconscious learns that if you do a certain exercise, you get some kind of reward for it. Well, what you're doing is you're setting up a reward system. So after a while, you become highly motivated, meaning that you do it as if without effort, and you want to do it, and you don't have to make yourself do it. The next phrase I'm going to say, you can even write it down if you want to. Substantial signs that you are getting better gradually. That's what it's all about. When you see substantial signs that you are, over long periods of time, gradually getting better, it will practically pick you up and carry you towards a lifetime of art practice and good focus. If someone asked me what it takes to be an artist, to be a what I would consider advanced artist, someone who that is their main thing in their life, it wouldn't be talent, it wouldn't be necessarily creative mindedness, it would be the wanting to be an artist. That, to me, that can bring the rest, can bring the creativity, can bring the talent. I think in so many cases, the people who make it as artists, there's one thing. That's what they want. This is one of the few times when the human's idea of justice can happen naturally in the world, and that's when, if you really, really, really want to be an artist, well, then probably you will be. There's one drawback to this, though. This is when you don't want to get ahead of yourself. If you're so hung up on being able to stay focused doing your art for 8 hours a day, every day, nonstop, then that's going to take away your enjoyment from the stage you're at now. You know, when someone walks into the gym the first time, it's no fun if they want to lift 300 pounds and get frustrated because they can't when they first walk in. It's a lot more fun, the way a video game could be fun, if you start off on level 1. And part of the whole fun of it is going up the levels. And there's no other way you can do that unless you start at the level where you can really only stay focused on your art for 20 minutes a day. And go ahead and make it easier than you know you can do each day. If you really think you could, with effort, stay highly focused for an hour doing your art each day, go ahead and do it for half an hour, but do it each day. And it's great to have the ideal in mind of someone who has had the gradual development of staying highly focused as sort of your signpost that you're gradually making your way towards, but enjoy where you're at. That is just as important. Ultimately, it's just as important to be able to stay focused doing your art for 30 minutes each day. Because you don't want to start a negative feedback loop. This is one thing, you know, people who are highly driven, this defeats highly driven people more than anything else I can think of right now. If every time you're telling yourself it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough, you're defeating yourself. So you really want to appreciate where you're at and take your time. Do not be in a hurry. Remember, it's consistency. It's that you do it without fail. If you're going to do it every day or 5 days a week, make sure you stick to that. And more important than if you don't increase your time for a year, that's fine, as long as you stick with it. Learn to enjoy the accomplishment of small goals. And if that doesn't seem like that's too exciting, think again to video games. It's the same thing. These are environments where you are rewarded for accomplishing small goals. And if you don't have to make yourself play a video game, you can have the same motivational environment set up in the way you do art. And think of it as a lifetime. Don't think of it as, I'm going to be an extremely prolific artist tomorrow. Think of it as, I'm going to very consistently do it to my best ability today, and I'm going to continue to do that every day for the rest of my life. And this is going to be something that in the long run is going to get you so much more further than any other approach. And if you get in your time, and by the way, timers are great. Of course, you can use the app these days. I think at one time I actually had a kitchen timer way back in the Stone Age, but go ahead and set your time, and when that buzzer goes off, if you feel like keep going, go ahead, no problem. And remember, tomorrow though, it's set back. You don't have to increase, that doesn't mean you have to increase your time. You're back to 30 minutes obligation the next day, and as long as you accomplish that the next day, that's great, and the day after, and the day after. And if there are days where you feel creative and want to keep going, no problem. But don't change that time too soon, because remember, once you change up that time, that you have to continue with that time increase from here until your final day. But what happens if I run out of ideas? What happens if there's nothing to do artistically? What happens if I become stuck? This is where you do art purely as a ritual. You find kind of one of those more mindless forms of art, just so that you need to at least be doing art physically, the activity of art. I know there was a time where I did these mirror mosaics, and it was more of a craft than an art, but I would do it faithfully, and so remember, think of it first of all as just an activity, just the same way someone would go shoot baskets for half an hour. you're doing the exact same thing. You don't need you don't need ideas. You don't need to create something new necessarily. If you go every day to the canvas and use the same paint to make horizontal lines on the canvas every single day, you're still going through the ritual, and it does work. Find something that you can fall back on, and it's easy to do. What you're doing is you're leaving yourself open for those times when you do get the ideas, you have greater focus than you did before, and you're much more able to take those ideas and run with them. So art as a form of exercise. There's someone who's been in training for years and years, and they can lift 200 pounds, and there's an artist who's been training for years and years and can stay focused for 4 hours. Now, when that artist gets that great idea, that artist has the capability, has developed the capability to run with that idea. I've met people with really great ideas who have not developed that focus, who have not developed that capability, and they have that idea and it sits somewhere and on a piece of paper in a desk drawer somewhere, and nothing's ever going to happen with it. But even if there's an artist who diligently practiced art with really no ideas, and there are artists like that, and all the power to them, with no great ideas for years and years and years and years, when they do get that good idea, they are the lucky ones who have developed the ability to be able to make something of that idea, and they have developed the focus where they can actually do something with that idea. And I can say, it has happened to me. I have had times where I knew I didn't really have any new ideas to work, and I just kept on. At the time I was a painter, and I would just think of something simple. As long as I was painting, as long as it was taking focus and I could get my hours in. And there were, for a while, I would go through spells. It was kind of like the seasons. I would have times when one or two ideas really, flourished and created more and more ideas, and there were other times where I was doing it purely as a ritual. And it paid off, because I never felt like I was being locked out of my wanting to make art. And then when I did get that idea, this 6-book story that I'm working on is really based around a small group of ideas, and when I pretty much got those at the same time. And when I did get them, I had been practicing art for years, not necessarily coming up with any original material. But when I did get those ideas, I had been developing the capabilities to do something with them. I love the idea of SETI, the way SETI, it's like leave the radio on, listening to the universe. Have we heard from any form of life? Probably not yet. But because with artists it's the same way. It's about leaving that radio on, and that takes discipline and patience. But it doesn't have to be hard. It can always be fun and easy. So Quentin is the individual who sent me the email. Thank you for the email. And if anybody else has questions, I'll try to answer them. If not in a tutorial, then with a reply. I hope that was helpful. If you would like to thank me for making these videos, encourage me to make more, please hit the like button, leave me a quick comment, subscribe, tell a friend about them. And also, if you're interested in strange alternative fiction, please visit my website, solomation.com, where you can see these episodes about this strange alternative fiction that I'm working on, illustrated in video, episodic format, free to view. I hope that all your artistic endeavors go very well, and I'm wishing you a lot of creative success, and I hope you have a good day.